Well, good afternoon. We're so glad you guys could join us today for how to turn a basic 401k into a total financial wellness machine. We're going to give folks another 30 seconds or so. We've still got people logging in, but we will get started promptly after that. And we promise to make the very most of your time with us today. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get started with a few housekeeping items. My name's David Hall. I'm with Hall Benefits Law. We're so excited to host this great group of guys today, and we're going to be telling you a little bit about how to turn your 401k into a total financial wellness machine. And what that means is that no 401k exists in a vacuum. You need a team. And so at Hall Benefits Law, as well as at Nationwide, Endurance Planning, ERISA Services, we all believe in an ecosystem of trusted advisors and people that you can turn to when you have questions or concerns. So anybody on this webinar will be more than welcome to answer your questions. We do have the opportunity today to do a little bit of Q&A at the end of our presentation. So I would encourage you to submit your questions via the GoToWebinar portal. There is a tiny triangle next to the word questions. If you click that triangle, you will be able to type in a question and submit that to the organizer, and the organizer will share those questions with us, and we will be sure to answer your questions. And if we're for some reason unable to answer your question online today, we promise to get back to you in person and answer that question for you. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speakers. I've introduced myself. I'm David Hall with Hall Benefits Law. We're a boutique ERISA and employment law firm headquartered in Atlanta. We serve clients in 30 states, and we are, again, proudly partnering with Johannes, who is your regional VP with Nationwide. Johannes, your name is on the screen, but raise your hand and say hello.
How are you?
Nick Westmoreland with ERISA Services, Inc. is here with us. And then finally, last but not least, Sam Bleckman with Endurance Planning Group. And again, we're also excited to be here. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the other presenters to turn off their cameras for the time being. I think it'll be a little easier to follow. And I'm going to jump right into my portion of the presentation. And the purpose behind my portion of the presentation today is just to set a foundation of the importance of ERISA legal compliance. You'll see me going back and forth between my screens. I apologize. I've got a lot of landscape to cover here. But the idea is that when you do have a functioning, healthy ecosystem of service providers, it starts with a foundation of compliance. And once you have that foundation of compliance in place, then you are good to go, and you can really do some special things for your employees. So just as background, it's incredibly important that your 401k be compliant. One of the reasons for this is that the Department of Labor does take a very critical eye at 401ks who are out of compliance, and there are, as you might expect, penalties and fines to be paid for those who are not. So every year the DOL audits thousands of plans. In 2020, this is the most recent data available, there were 1,122 civil investigations, 754 of which resulted in monetary penalties. These are just the investigations that were closed. So the annual data is not based on ongoing investigations, only closed investigations. So please be aware there are many other active DOL investigations ongoing that would have started in 2020. So over the years, the DOL has collected an increased number of penalties each year. Even in a year of a global pandemic, they managed to collect 0.1 billion more than they did the prior year. And if you look at the numbers here, our expectation for 2021, based on past knowledge and the opening up of the economy again and businesses going back full swing, 401ks, again, being contributed to and matched, you're going to see even more enforcement in 2021. And I would suspect under a Biden administration, there will be even more scrutiny from the DOL. Ironically, when President Trump was elected, there was a bit of a sigh of relief from the business community, thinking, oh, they're going to take the magnifying glass off of 401ks and the 401k industry. But if you'll look over the last few years of the Trump administration, that did not happen. The DOL continued to do what the DOL does, and the DOL will continue to do what the DOL does until further notice. So be aware that the DOL penalty collection is on the increase. Now, if you have a retirement plan and you are an employer and you have any administrative functionality over that plan, or you're a business owner, then you are a de facto fiduciary. Just wanted to give you guys a quick primer. There's 3 types of fiduciaries. You can see each of them on the screen here. If you have questions about what a fiduciary is and what a fiduciary does, I'll dig into that just a bit here shortly, but there are different types of fiduciaries. The key takeaway from today's presentation, for my portion anyway, is simply this: you cannot abdicate your fiduciary duty as a plan sponsor. It does not matter if you hire a 338 investment manager to take on the fiduciary duty of the plan. At the end of the day, the plan sponsor cannot abdicate fiduciary duty. It can share fiduciary duty, and it can outsource some functions of the fiduciary, but you cannot abdicate your fiduciary duty. So you are a de facto fiduciary if you are a plan sponsor. So this brings up the question, well, okay, I'm a fiduciary, what does that mean? What that means is that you are responsible for making sure that your plan remains in compliance and that everything that you do is for the benefit of those participants in the plan. So according to ERISA section 409, you as a plan fiduciary, and I do mean you as an individual, shall be personally liable for losses to the plan resulting from each breach, and shall be subject to other equitable remedial relief the court may deem appropriate. So again, compliance is important because non-compliance can not only impact your participants and the plan itself, and can impact you as an individual. So very quickly, I'm going to run through the different fiduciary responsibilities. There are 5 of them. I'm going to name them, and we'll just run through these quickly. Exclusive benefit duty, I already mentioned this. This is often mentioned first. Everything you do within and for the plan must be done solely in the interest of plan participants. It cannot be done to save your company money. It cannot be done because you want to work with a specific advisor or because you want a certain plan member to benefit more than other plan members. It must be done in the sole interest of all the plan participants participating in your plan. So, and the exclusive purpose is to provide the benefits of that plan to the participants. Prudent expert. All the decisions you make must be made with the same level of diligence that a prudent person acting in a similar situation, familiar with a similar plan, would act. So you must act in a prudent manner. And if you don't know what a prudent manner is, I would advise that you have an advisor who knows what a prudent expert is. Diversification duty. Diversify plan investments to minimize the risk of loss. That is your role as a plan fiduciary. Many times that role is outsourced. Plan adherence. You must follow the terms of the plan document. I cannot tell you how many times we've had a client come to us or a potential client who then hires the firm who has been operating their plan in a way that is not coherent with the plan document. If your plan document is ERISA consistent, if it matches the law, then you must operate according to that plan document. And if your plan document is not ERISA compliant, then you've got bigger problems. Disclosure. The fiduciary must provide the required disclosures, such as summary plan descriptions, SMMs, and summary annual reports. These are documents that must be disseminated, in some cases annually, in some cases on a different cadence, to all plan participants. Any ERISA attorney, advisor, third-party administrator can help a plan sponsor understand what these communications are, but you must make those disclosures annually by law or according to the cadence on which that particular notice is on. Okay, there are many breach lawsuits out there. You can be sued. The DOL can sue you. A plan participant can sue you. And some of the reasons for recent class actions over the last couple of years can be seen on your screen. I won't run through them. But if you're not adhering to those 5 duties, you are at a much higher risk for a lawsuit. And these group lawsuits, these breach class action lawsuits, the larger your company, the more opportunity for these participants to take advantage of a class action lawsuit. And the smaller your company, the more impactful one of these lawsuits can be, because you may not have in the kitty what you need to defend yourself against such a lawsuit. Again, just highlighting the importance of a foundation of compliance. So some important things. This is probably remedial for many on the call right now, but I just wanted to remind you of a few key components of a good retirement plan. The retirement plan needs to have a retirement plan committee and a committee charter. The charter provides the foundation for how the committee will act, how often they will meet, what the membership shall look like. Again, we recommend that you do outsource a portion of this to either an advisor or counsel, because there are many things about a committee. Again, if you have a committee charter, you need to be acting according to the charter. You need to be meeting on the same cadence that the charter indicates, and you need to be including members in your committee as the charter dictates. The role of the committee is to meet regularly, to create documentation, and it should be, again, varied in its representation. Meeting minutes, this is an issue that's come across our desks here at Hall Benefits Law a number of times. It is actually possible in your meeting minutes to incriminate yourself. And so, any plan sponsors on the line, I'm sure you don't want to incriminate yourself doing something that you feel is making your plan more compliant. This is why we recommend counsel or an advisor who's capable of sitting in on the meetings, taking those minutes, and then counsel or an advisor can even take the minutes or review the minutes prior to having those minutes officially submitted. So doing so, taking minutes in general is a record of your decision-making process. It reduces mistakes, and it allows the courts and litigants in the future, again, if you've protected yourself by taking good minutes and not incriminating yourself somehow unintentionally, then they can assess whether a breach of fiduciary responsibility occurred simply through the minutes. So that is one of the strongest protections you have as a plan sponsor against fiduciary breach lawsuits, is taking good minutes, having regular meetings, and obviously operating your plan according to the plan document. The plan sponsor is the default fiduciary. Again, you cannot abdicate your fiduciary duty. The board of directors is the default for all fiduciary decision-making, and there is no such thing as fiduciary liability insurance for a board. However, there is fiduciary liability insurance, and we recommend this for every plan sponsor. This mitigates your personal liability should you be sued for fiduciary breach. A fidelity bond is not fiduciary liability insurance. There's a lot of confusion amongst plan sponsors about the difference between a fidelity bond, which actually protects the plan and the plan participants, and a fiduciary liability insurance policy, which protects the individual who is acting as fiduciary from being, if that individual is sued, protecting your assets. So just again, wrapping up, we do recommend that you do the following things to mitigate your fiduciary exposure. If you're doing these things, it's more than likely that your plan is in compliance. And at that point, you can be working regularly with a team of trusted advisors to ensure that your plan participants are getting the very most out of your retirement plan possible. So I'm not going to go through this whole slide. We'll be providing a recording essentially of this video, and we look forward to you guys digging in a little bit deeper on some of these slides and asking us any questions by email that you may have. With that, I am going to move past fiduciary training here. We do recommend fiduciary training to all of our clients. It is something that Hall Benefits Law can do. It is something that many advisory firms can do and do well. And so if you feel like you need ongoing fiduciary training, please don't hesitate to reach out to HBL. We can either connect you to a great advisor who can do fiduciary training, or we can help you with fiduciary training ourselves. And I look forward to hopefully meeting and speaking with some of you today that are attending at some point in the future. So with that, Johannes, I'm going to drop off, and we're going to hear from Nationwide.
Wonderful, David. Thank you very much. I must say that no one ever wants to say my last name, and I don't blame anyone. It's Gerza Scandon, and my joke is always, if I could get my children to say it right, I would be ahead of the game. So I answer to just about anything, but indeed, as David had mentioned earlier, I am the Nationwide Retirement Plan Wholesaler based in Atlanta. And so thank you all for taking some time to be here. We know you have a lot of competing interests again for your time. And we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to listen to our presentation. I think as the topic indicates, turning your 401k plan into a financial wellness machine is a really key topic, because ultimately not all companies are the same. Not all companies have the same goals, and even within the same industry, participants in different companies are different. And so, there's a lot of things that are on plan sponsors and participants' minds at this point, and financial wellness is one of them. From a firm's perspective, it really is beneficial for firms to help participants get to their stated goal of retirement readiness for a number of reasons. And first and foremost, it's the right thing to do. These are employees who have been valuable employees, and helping them and providing the context for them to get to that state of retirement readiness makes sense. It also allows them to retire on time, which allows you to hire new people and rejuvenate the workforce that you've got working for you. From a participant perspective, there's a lot of anxiety around the tools that they need to feel comfortable about retiring in time, and that includes access to information. It includes, the kind of models and the kind of platform that's going to meet their needs and give them the kind of access to information and utilities to get to where they ultimately need to be. So what we're really trying to do is help you to find a way to turn your 401k from a benefit, from a commodity, into a benefit that people are going to enjoy and find the value in. And so we're going to talk about two basic areas during the course of this presentation. The first is going to be our integrated approach to retirement readiness, really addressing those things that we're hearing that participants want. And the second will be operational excellence. And so, David, if you'd turn the slide, I'd like to begin with the first way that we engage with participants. We strive to really envelop participants in meaningful interactions that resonate with them and allow them to get information on the cadence that makes the most sense for them. And so once we do the initial enrollments, it doesn't stop there, because participants have told us that they want more information. And so what we do is, if you look at the left-hand side of that screen, our participant engagement program really focuses on a foundation of data. So we will collect the census data from you. It allows us to then interact with participants in their 30s in different ways than we would interact with participants in their 60s. But we take that participant engagement to another level, and when we overlay a behavioral approach to it. So we know how two 35-year-olds are interacting with us. We may have one that's digging deep into the website, that's looking at funds and modeling loans and looking at different videos. And we may have another 35-year-old that simply is checking their account balance. Those differences in the way that they interact with us allow us to then interact with them differently, to target different types of information to them. And I'll show you in a moment here how that actually is quantifiable in terms of the impact that it has. The second piece is the top of the page with our interactive tools. Participants want to be able to do things online, but they don't want to only be sitting at a computer and doing it. They want to use their mobile phone, they want to use their tablet, and they want to be able to do everything that they can do on those devices that they could do on a laptop computer or on a desktop computer. And so with our mobile responsive website, they've got the ability to do just that. Anything that they can do on a laptop or a desktop, they can do on their phone or their tablet. They can enroll online, they can change funds online, they can initiate a loan online. So very powerful interactive sources that meet them where they want to be met. And then the third piece of this is ultimately about guidance, where they're able to call into our call centers all the way up until 11 o'clock during the week and 6 p.m. on the weekend, on the Saturdays, and talk to one of our folks about enrollment, and getting involved in the plan. All of these tools are not meant as a substitute for the financial advisor. They're simply meant as an enhancement to the services that the financial advisor provides to the plan. And so we think that they're incredibly valuable. So let's take a look, David, if you turn to the next slide, the impact of our participant engagement program. And I want to draw your eyes smack dab to the middle of the slide there. Increase in contributions. So participants have told us they want more information, they want more help, they want information that's relevant to them. With our targeted information, with our targeted communications, what we're able to see is participants having an 18% increase in contributions. I was doing a finals presentation earlier today with a professional group, and their average contributions were about $3,700 per participant. Based on the math, that is 18% of that would be another $700. And so it's not inconceivable that our participant engagement program would help those participants to increase their contributions to $4,400 a year on average. Think about this from the perspective of your participants. How much more quickly would they be able to achieve their retirement readiness goals if they could accelerate what they were saving? How much more impactful would it be for them if they were able to do that? And then the other part that I'd like to draw your attention to is 56% of participants felt more confident when they were exposed to our educational campaigns than they did before. And so this is, in sum, a great validation, a quantitative validation of meaningful ways that we interact with participants and how that makes a difference. David, if you turn to the next slide, the other thing that participants are telling us that they want is information that goes beyond just the 401k plan. So one of the things that we do through our Retirement Institute is we will provide participants with seminars on a number of different topics, but the two that are most popular right now focus around the timing of Social Security. What are the impacts if I take it a little early? What are the impacts if I wait a little bit longer? And the impacts of healthcare costs in retirement. The data tells us that participants are very concerned about what healthcare is going to cost them in retirement. The numbers tell us that for a couple that is 65, that couple will spend on the order of $350,000 in retirement. These seminars help them to get a better idea of what their exposure is. And by the way, with respect to healthcare, we also have a fully integrated option for a health savings account through Health Equity that can be incorporated into the 401k plan. These are things that participants have been asking for. And so if you turn to the next slide, David, the real question is, what does this lead to? What does all of this interaction lead to? What it leads to is an increase in satisfaction among participants and among plan sponsors. And so this is a J.D. Power survey of providers in the marketplace. You'll see the orange bar is the segment average. You'll see the green bar is where Nationwide falls within that, right at the top, very consistently across small, medium, and large plans. And at the end of the day, what it means for you is, again, higher satisfaction, more confidence for your participants, ultimately less anxiety and stress, which translates to more productive workers and which translates to them being able to retire on time, which is a benefit for them as well as for you. So the next question is, what's on tap for the future? David, if you turn the slide, what the next horizon that we're looking at, because participants have told us that is where they want to be, is we are going to be putting an in-plan guarantee in place later on this year for participants in our 401k plans. Essentially, we call it 5 for Life, and what it does is it allows a participant to get the benefit of either the amount of money that they've put into their 401k plan or the market value, whichever is higher, and take 5% out of that balance for the remainder of their life. Anything that is left in the plan gets to be passed on to the beneficiaries once they die. Participants have told us they're anxious about market volatility. They're anxious about the nest egg that they have accumulated, and they don't want to get into a position where they retire at the end of 2007 and experience the kind of market volatility that happened in 2008 and beyond, or that they retire just before the volatility that we had in 2018 at the end of the year. So these are some of the unique tools that we have. 5 for Life is a unique tool that we are bringing out in anticipation of exactly the kind of concerns that I just mentioned to you that participants are expressing to us. let's toggle for a moment and talk about, David, if you'd turn to the next slide, how we help plan sponsors create the right investment platform for them, because this has been a big concern of plan sponsors as well. Plan sponsors are concerned about flexibility, concerned about transparency, and ultimately concerned about the investments in their plan. Nationwide offers a mutual fund-based platform, over 1,500 institutional shares available to construct the platform from, and we do not have either a proprietary fund requirement or we don't keep any revenue share in any of the funds as well. What this allows us to do is be exceptionally transparent with you with respect to what we're going to charge for our record keeping on the plan, and plan sponsors like that. They like to understand this is it's not A plus B minus C divided by D with a, to the squared root. It's straightforward, it's easy, and we've got all of the funds and fund families that people love, whether it's BlackRock, American Funds, Vanguard, PIMCO, or any of the other funds that you see on the screen there. So we do provide flexible strategies with all of those different fund families. And David, if you would turn to the next slide, one of the big things as a fiduciary that you have to be concerned about, and David touched on this during his presentation, is how do you monitor the funds in your platform, right? How do you do that and provide a platform that's going to be not something exotic, but that's going to provide a benefit for all employees without overwhelming them? So Nationwide provides this continuum of options to choose from. What you'll notice is that participants, where the plan sponsors are really going to have 2 of these 5 silos open across the board. They're going to pick a single target date fund for their portfolio and then style box coverage for the designated remainder of the core lineup. One of the things that Nationwide offers that no one else does is the ability to open up a fund window. So once that core lineup is in place, Nationwide, if you decide that you want to open this up to plan participants, will allow you to open up a fund window. A participant can say, I want to get off of the core lineup and pick anything else on Nationwide's platform. They can do that. There's no additional charge. We're not going to keep any of the revenue share if the funds have it. And the upside for the participant is that they have that additional flexibility. The upside for the plan sponsor is the plan sponsor continues to retain fiduciary insulation because the participant says, I acknowledge you are not monitoring plan sponsor, you are not monitoring the funds outside of this core lineup. And as David said, we provide a number of 338 investment fiduciary options for you to outsource that liability. Could be a wonderful way to solve all of the desires of the participants in the plan. And then David, finally, if you would transition to the last slide, I very briefly want to talk about security because everybody is concerned about security. Nationwide believes that it is of critical importance to maintain the security, not just of participant data, but also of the nest egg that you have so diligently built up. So with that said, we've got multiple data centers that are geographically remote. They can run without access to fuel for at least 7 days, and definitely if they have access to fuel. Nationwide also takes great care in ensuring that we have the technology in place to protect data. So we've got keystroke recognition. We've got interactive voice response systems that utilize voice recognition technology. And if something is out of sync with either of those two, we'll pause a transaction until we can verify with a participant that it is them and that someone's not acting on their behalf. And if a participant wants to opt out of all of the interactive systems and talk to somebody live, first and foremost, 100% of people at Nationwide are based in the United States. We believe it's important for a couple of reasons. One, to give jobs back to where we do business, but 2, we believe that when you offshore, it just provides another opportunity for some sort of data breach. So 100% of our participants, 100% of our employees are based in the United States. And when you opt out and speak to them, that individual in Nationwide has a live score of how likely the call is to be fraudulent. So for example, if you traditionally use an Apple iPhone, but you switch to a Samsung Galaxy, that score will change. If you are in Atlanta using the same cell phone towers to ping off of, and all of a sudden you pop up in Los Angeles, that score will change. At the end of the day, it's all about ensuring that data and assets are protected. Again, you spend a long time building up a nest egg, and we want to make sure that it is there for you to enjoy when you retire. And so with that said, I will close it up by summarizing. The 401k plan really should be a benefit not just a commodity. Participants are telling us that they're concerned about volatility and about access to information, and plan sponsors are concerned about transparency and flexibility of the platform. So if there's any questions that you have, again, there will be a chat function. Feel free to reach out. But now I'd like to turn it over to Nick Westmoreland from ERISA Services. Thank you, Nick.
Awesome. Thank you, Johannes. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I know we're up to about a half hour, so we're going to be kind of moving through these next slides. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. My part of the presentation, we're going to be covering what can you do to increase financial wellness for your retirement plan from a plan design standpoint. So I'm going to be talking about a feature that's called automatic enrollment. It's been around for many years. Some of you on the call may already have this kind of provision in your plan, but hopefully for those that either don't know what automatic enrollment entails, or maybe you've been thinking about it for their own plan, maybe this could provide a little bit of guidance to see whether or not this would be a good fit for you, your plan, and your participants. So first off, what is automatic enrollment? Automatic enrollment is a provision that allows employers to enroll eligible employees into the plan automatically. The participants can opt out, so they of course, in this kind of provision, they'd be given a notice saying, hey, our plan has a automatic feature. If you take no action, we're going to default you at a certain rate, and you'll be in the plan. So great feature, very powerful. Next slide, please, David. We'll move into the benefits of automatic enrollment. So first and foremost, if your goal is to increase financial wellness for you and your plan, this is one of the most powerful ways to do so. It significantly increases participation and savings rates for your employees. Another big benefit, if this is for plans that are not safe harbor. So if your plan does not have a safe harbor match or non-elective contribution, and you're subject to that yearly testing, this automatic enrollment can be a huge benefit, because what you're going to do is you're going to take your entire employee base and you're going to increase participation significantly. And what that's going to do is going to increase your average participation rate in your non-highly paid group. So what does that mean? Essentially, that means that your highly compensated employees, those earning over 130,000, owners in that group, will be able to contribute more of their money. So another benefit we'll talk about is, of course, it increases overall plan health and plan success. We'll move on to the next slide. This Vanguard just released this awesome research paper. Vanguard's obviously the largest mutual fund company there is. And so they just released this paper. And for anybody that's interested in these statistics, we'll make sure that David has that for after the webinar. But just getting into some of the findings, participation rates for plans with automatic enrollment are triple what they would be under voluntary enrollment. So you'll see here 91% compared to 28%. Big difference in getting employees into the plan. Next point, after 3 years, 92% of participants automatically enrolled were still participating versus 29%. So again, huge swing. Next, automatic enrollment participants are likely to increase their participation rate over time and stay in the plan's default investment. So that the reason they're increasing their participation rate is one, they're in the plan, they're engaged, they're interested, they're seeing their account balance grow. And then there's also some features you can put in place, like an auto escalation, which would look like 1% a year. You'd say, hey, we want to add an auto escalation feature as well. And at every January 1st, we're gonna increase everybody 1%, and that you can set a ceiling there. The most common ceiling is somewhere between 8 to 10%, because you don't want this to go too far. But very cool feature. Last statistic we'll touch on is the opt-out rate. So opt-out rate, so employees opting out of the automatic enrollment, of those paid $15,000 to $30,000 a year, was only 15% if the default rate was kept between 2 and 6%. So that last one is very important. It'll kind of lead into our next slide. as we get into potential drawbacks of automatic enrollment. So David, if you wouldn't mind getting to the next one. And I think my screen may have froze. There we go. Drawbacks of automatic enrollment. So Johannes and I actually just spoke with a plan sponsor yesterday. They had terminated their plan a couple years ago and were interested in starting it back up. They were kind of an example of automatic enrollment can frustrate your employees if it's done the wrong way. If you set that default rate too high and you don't have a good communication plan, automatic enrollment, it can kind of tick off some of your employees if it's going to hit and they're not expecting it. So next slide, please, David. A couple other drawbacks of automatic enrollment: additional administration in the form of a required notice. So if you do have an automatic enrollment provision, there is an additional notice requirement. And then, of course, tracking, those that are automatically enrolled and those that are not. A different drawback would be an increase of the employer match. So obviously, if you have 100 employees and say 20 people right now are contributing, and you add automatic enrollment, and 2 or 3 years down the road, out of those 100, it goes from 20 to say 50 or 60 or more, that's going to increase the cost of your match. So for some of you, that may be the desired goal. Like, hey, we want everybody in there. We want to match everything we can. For a lot of our smaller clients, that increase in cost is significant and something that they're kind of uncomfortable with. So again, automatic enrollment's not the perfect fit for everybody. Next, we'll get into consequences for not administering correctly. Those lead to corrections, but the good news there is that the IRS back in 2015 just actually relaxed many of those consequences, which was great because the penalties at that time were too stiff and were keeping too many plan sponsors from taking advantage of this really cool provision. Last drawback that we see often is if your plan is safe harbor, you may not need it from a testing standpoint. So at that point, a lot of times you're adding automatic enrollment in theme of this presentation, which is increasing financial wellness. So we go to the next slide, please. These are for most of our clients, these are the most common automatic enrollment provisions that we see. We typically see a default rate between 2% and 6%. I kind of feel that if you're under the 2% mark, that really isn't really enough. What's going to happen is you're going to increase the number of account balances and then increase the number of terminated balances. So don't really want that. We want people to be engaged enough to where this is going to really be a significant benefit for them at retirement. When we're adding automatic enrollment to an existing plan, most of our clients tend to opt for rolling it out to those that are newly eligible or those that do not have an election on file. So those that are already in the plan or have already given you an enrollment form back saying, hey, I don't want to be in this plan, or yes, I am in this plan, they're not included in that initial population. And then we have other clients that just say, hey, moving forward, we're just going to do this for new hires. There's also an opt-out option for certain types of automatic enrollment, meaning that 30 to 90 days after you roll it out, they can take their money out penalty-free, which is great. Some clients like that, some don't. No right or wrong answer there. Another thing we see commonly is an auto increase at 1% a year. Again, if you do that, you probably want to set a ceiling so that, as it goes up each year, maybe we're capping it out at 8% or 10%, knowing that a lot of people can't afford to go, well beyond that. And lastly, this can definitely be paired with your safe harbor match or discretionary match. It could also be, hey, if you're starting a new retirement plan and you can't commit to a match yet, automatic enrollment could be a great way to get people engaged in the absence of a match. So Sam's going to talk about the importance of that in his presentation. But one more slide. Next slide, please, Dave. Last, I'll leave you with just a few best practices. So if you're thinking about adding automatic enrollment for your retirement plan, discuss it with your TPA or your bundled administrator. Also pull in your financial advisor. Automatic enrollment it's a very powerful thing, and it can be really great. it can also be bad for the wrong candidate. Next best practice to consider is your payroll. The investment platforms like Nationwide, these days, they have the technology to track eligibility, to send out notices for you on your behalf. But in order for them to do that, they need your payroll data, and not just contributions going in. They need, data hire, hours worked, so that they can project out that eligibility. But the good news is that they have the ability to take that off of your plate, and largely you're already paying them for their technology. So it's kind of services left on the table. Again, payroll is a huge part of automatic enrollment if the goal is to offload as much of the administration piece as possible. Last, I'll leave you with is good communication strategy. Again, that client I told you about that Johannes and I were talking about, they did not have a good communication strategy. A lot of that was they did not have a good local advisor to help them out. So if you're going to roll this out, you want to make sure you have a plan to give the notices out and a plan to communicate this with your employees. And it's great. Those that are automatically enrolled, you're going to look back a year later. They're going to see this money growing in their plan. They're going to feel good about it, and they will largely, be thankful for it. And hopefully that, leads to stickier employment for you as the employer. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to all of you and to the other sponsors. Now I'm going to hand it over to Sam Blackman to continue.
Appreciate it, Nick. Once again, I'm Sam. I'm with Endurance Planning Group. So we are a full-service financial planning firm based here in Atlanta, and I specifically handle our 401k business, both from a plan level as well as the participant level. So really, what we believe in is better communication, and this industry has really lacked what we believe to be good communication in years past. So we're trying to enhance that. So this is kind of a funny slide that I put together to kind of show what could happen and what your employees might think of what could be a great plan, but if it's not communicated well and they don't understand it, it might not mean anything to them, and they might just think of it as a commodity basic 401k plan. So for example, let's pretend this is a safe harbor match plan, so up to a 4% match on the table here. And on the left side, an employee starts and they're told, yeah, we offer a 401k plan. There's a match. Maybe that was in their HR packet and they don't really know what it means and they don't know who to contact. So they find out they're having an account at Nationwide. There's 15 investment options, and that's really all they know when they log in. They don't know, what any of those options mean, which ones are risky, which ones are not. They might not have any, knowledge of, ever received good financial advice in the past or have anyone in their family to talk to. Also, a lot of plans will offer pre-tax or Roth. This is a question we get all the time when we talk to participants. A lot of them don't even know what the Roth feature is, that it is post-tax. And then they don't know what the benefit of doing that is, or if they are interested in it, how much should they put away? So a lot of times you don't have an advisor that's been introduced. They're just going to call the 1-800 number on their vendor, and who knows what kind of answer they're going to get from a person that really doesn't know them. So on the right side here, we see what happens when we involve a good advisor that's going to take the time to meet with the employees, either by phone, virtual call, or in person, and explain the plan to them. So it's a generous 401k plan. We have 100% vested company match based on the safe harbor rules. So explaining how that match actually works. And a lot of employees know that they have a match, and if you ask them to explain it to you, they're like, 50 cents on the dollar for 3. And they really don't know what the actual match is, and that if they put at least 5% of their salary in, they're going to get a 4% match. So really taking the time to explain the actual basic math behind a match. I get that question all the time. Going over the investment options. So a lot of people are familiar with the target date options, which tend to be the defaults in most plans now. But a lot of employees just end up in there and they don't really know why they're in there. They don't know, what benefits there are to looking at, having a balanced portfolio across the other options based on their age. So just being able to explain those options to them, work with them on that is really helpful. Also explaining the pre-tax and Roth contributions based on their age, based on their goals, based on how close they are to retirement. People ask those questions all the time. So having someone to field those questions and be proactive about reaching out to your employees has been a good game changer for us. And next slide, David. So one-on-one meetings and new employee onboarding. So this is kind of, I think, the best asset that our company brings to the table. So I know there's a lot of HR and benefits folks on this call, and we want to be your best friend. We want to help you and be an advocate for your employees. So we like to have the communication come from HR. So when we take over on a plan, for instance, we'll put together some communication for HR to send out to the employee base to help schedule a call with us to explain the plan, any changes that might have occurred, and really just open up the discussion if they do have any personal finance questions. Because what we found is kind of the old-fashioned way of your provider coming in once a year and doing a big meeting in a group session. Nobody wants to ask the dumb question. So everyone just kind of found those as a waste of time. And honestly, the new landscape that COVID's brought, where a lot of employees are working from home and everyone's used to jumping on a Zoom or a Teams call, has kind of really opened the door to normalize that. So when recently we did a new outreach, we took over a plan with about 120 employees, and just from HR sending out that email, we actually had 50 of the employees, about half, sign up to do a one-on-one call with us. So all employees would get a chance to sign up for a one-on-one call to discuss any topics of interest. It will start on the 401k, but we just found people are starving for information. So there was a lot of job change this year, people at all stages in their career. So lots of people have money in old 401ks right now. So they need to know what their best option may be, whether they should leave that at their old company, which could make sense, whether they should roll it into their plan at the new company, or if they don't have an IRA, would it make sense to set up an IRA and open up those investment options and have a professional actually help them? So we found that to be very beneficial. And then also for terminated employees, this could be a headache for companies with a lot of employees. They have a lot of small balances, employees that leave the company. We actually have an outreach program where we'll reach out to those folks and kind of let them know, hey, you have $5,000 in the plan here. Probably make the most sense for you to consolidate this to your IRA or roll it into your new plan. So just knowing that this kind of service exists has been beneficial for helping our clients. And then last but not least, I got one more slide. So I know Nick had mentioned auto escalation and auto enroll, which are great ways to increase participation. Another way to attract employees and increase participation is a company match, which can make sense or might not be in everybody's budget. But from just talking to employees, a lot of them won't participate. Honestly, if there's no match, they don't really see the benefit. Some of them obviously will participate a lot more if there is a match to get the full match. So you really want to rely on your advisor and TPA partner. So in working with Nick and the right team, we can take your employee census and show you a bunch of different scenarios to kind of fit with your budget and show you what you could be on the hook for if you did put in a match. And you really want to decide if your highly compensated employees, so you got a big executive team, a lot of high earners, is it important to them? Have they talked to you about getting refunds, after the 401k testing's done if you don't have a safe harbor match? And getting the refunds could be frustrating to them or your execs. So just if they all want to contribute $19,500 and max out and not have to think about getting a refund, then it could make sense to put in a safe harbor match, but obviously based on if it fits your budget. So everyone thinks that it's really only a safe harbor match, but you could put in a great match that's not a safe harbor, so it still has to go through testing, but you can put a vesting schedule on that. So in a sense, say you want to do a dollar for dollar match up to 3%, and the budget could be an issue. We could look at putting in a graded vesting schedule of up to 6 years. So yeah, you're giving that money to your employees now, and they're going to want to participate to get that match. And it's going to help with your employee loyalty, because if they were to take a new job or looking to leave, they're going to see that, oh, I'm only halfway vested in this match money. And if they do leave, that unvested portion is going to go back to the company to help you in a forfeiture account with any future match contributions or any maintenance costs for the 401k. So deciding on either a safe harbor match or a customized match that fits your company's budget is really something that you should be looking at on a year-to-year basis, because that's the number one thing that employees are looking at now. And the job landscape is super competitive in this. People know what's out there and they know what they're getting, and they all talk. So it's one thing that I would strongly consider, every employer to consider if it fits with your employee base. And so that pretty much wraps up the presentation. So we are a great team here. So Johannes, Nick, and I, and David, we've all partnered on plans in the past. So like we said, you want to have the specialists in every aspect of the plan to really help, drive that financial wellness machine. So if there's any questions, feel free to type them in. We got a few minutes, and I'll turn it back over to David to close it out.
Thanks, Sam. Great job. Nick and Johannes, thank you guys so much. We do have a couple questions, and I'll just go ahead and shoot. It looks like the question for Nationwide here, Johannes, you went through quite a few features and benefits and a kind of a full suite of services. What is included and what is extra?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our model is an all-inclusive model. That was only part of what we are able to do. So there are other features that are included, and there is no additional cost for any of the services that we provide, whether it's the education or the websites or any materials. It's all included.
Okay, excellent. And then Nick, I'm curious about the TPA services that you specifically offer, obviously, but a TPA in general. Is that something that the TPA can manage from the auto